What we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about our training system. Training system consists of our training programs, which is our skill building, our force on target, force on role player, force on force, and reality-based training, which the entire system, we put it together and we kind of go through and show people how to train on that system and utilizing the tools that we have available, which is our UTM ammunition, our PPE, our personal protective gear, also our portable training facilities, and also our training props and training equipment. So that kind of makes up the system along with the training programs. And what I'd like to do is start out talking to you a little bit about the UTM conversions and safety, along with the ammunition and the rounds, and then we'll talk a little bit about the training model and how they kind of apply. Okay, we're talking about safety and realism, and there's a balance between the two, obviously. Safety being the most important. But it is important also to train as you fight. And when I say train as you fight, some of the other systems that are out there on the market that will have to change the entire upper receiver, and you can't use the weapon that you're actually going to be training with. You have to change out sights. Maybe you don't have the grips that you would normally have, your own sling, etc. So when we're talking about the M4, our system is completely safe because we change it from a center fire to a rim fire bolt. And you're using the weapon that you would normally use on duty or in combat, and all you have to do is change out the bolt. So you take your bolt out, the live bolt, you put that somewhere safe, you take our bolt, drop it into the conversion or into the weapon, close it up, and you're ready to train. One of the key factors here is that we change it, as I said before, from a center fire to a rim fire. What that means is, even if somebody intentionally drops a live round into the weapon, once it's converted, it will not fire. So that's our live round, 100% live round lockout. There's your conversion, and now it's ready to go. Another safety feature, if you notice the blue on the bolt on the weapon, dust cover does not close by design so that you can always check the weapon. One of the things that we would do as a safety check, obviously, if somebody was getting ready to go through training and they're stacked up on the door, or if they're getting ready to do some combatives, whatever it is, you would just watch and check the bolt. Everybody's lined up, the instructor goes through, checks the blue on the bolt. We know 100% they cannot fire a live round from that particular position. So safety is critical. The other thing is, as I said before, you're converting your weapon completely so that now you're training with your weapon. So let's talk about that. That's number one, first and foremost. All right, so the weapon on the rifle. On the pistol, different pistols are converted different ways. And we have, 65 to 75 different conversions on the market. Bottom line is, though, they're all different. Some of them will have just a barrel exchange, where you just take your slide off, you take the barrel, put our barrel in, live barrel goes in a box somewhere, and it's converted. Again, live round lockout is the headspace. So the round will not seat properly, so it stays out of battery, so live round will not engage once you change and you put the UTM conversion in there. For this particular conversion, which is the Glock, all it is the entire slide. You would actually just take the spring off, put our slide and barrel in there, and then you would just put the spring on, and then you put your entire slide back on the top, and that's it. It's completely converted. Again, markings blue on the top, blue on both sides, so that at least you know, once again, you're getting ready to train, you can clearly identify it's a UTM weapon, you know it's safe, you know it's not going to fire a live round, even if they sneak one into training or accidentally get one into training. So that's the man marker rounds, which is our marking cartridge conversion. On the pistols, for safety, we also have a black barrel. The black barrel is for our blank fire weapons. The blank fire weapons, we have silent blanks, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. We have silent blanks, and we also have battlefield blanks. The silent blanks are completely quiet, no noise whatsoever, no gas, no emissions. You put your hand right over the barrel, pull the trigger, completely safe. Can also be used in different interactive training systems for recoil. So if you're working with one of the screen systems, you could use the silent blanks to activate not only the laser but also get the recoil, as opposed to air compressed or tethered weapons. So we use the silent blanks for that. We also use the silent blanks in addition to that, for combatives training, gun takeaways, weapon retention, things of that nature. So we go through, and you can do just about anything with the silent blanks. You can do firearms drills, reload drills. So it gives you a good versatile opportunity to do your training. The battlefield blanks, which is basically our black tipped, and the silent blank is the white tip, so you can distinguish between the two. All right, so white tip for silent blank, black tip for battlefield blanks. When we say battlefield, it is basically referred to as battlefield, but it is a noisy blank. All right, the noisy blank, obviously you're going to do scenario training, so when you fire the weapon, it gives you that loud pop, but not too loud. It's still under the decibel levels according to OSHA standards. It's still under the decibel levels where you don't need hearing protection. So now if you're operating and you're working in an environment and you're running your drills, you want to draw them in, maybe you're doing active shooter, you pull the trigger a few times, you're going to hear that loud pop. Gun is going to recoil exactly like normal recoil would be. You're drawing them into the scenario. You can have your role players firing the battlefield blanks, and you can have your operators firing with the man markers. This way, your operators can be running with no equipment other than what they would normally go to battle with, and your role players can be completely suited up for the man markers. So it just gives you some versatility in the rounds, and that's really what it's all about. Versatility in training, understanding, what's going to drive the training in the right direction. So the system gives you that versatility. We also, like I said, have protective gear, we have training props, we have all kinds of things that actually will assist in the training of evolution. So let's talk a little bit about the rounds before we go further. So you talked about the conversion kits, we talked about the conversion for the pistols and for the rifles. I briefly mentioned the silent blanks and the battlefield blanks, and we also have our man marker cartridges. Our man marker are the ones that have the marking compound in the front, so that when you can shoot force on force, you'll get that star mark on the person, so you'll be able to tell if you hit them or not. I'll go into the actual technology of the rounds, and I just want to talk a little bit about that before we actually talk about the individual rounds. Now, what makes us unique in several different ways, first and foremost, is we have a two-stage primer system in the rounds. Now, when I say two-stage primer, there's a primer in the rear, and the only job that primer has is to cycle the weapon. The cartridge expands once the firing pin strikes, bolt goes to the rear, there's a small ball inside that fires forward, hits a small forward primer that sends the projectile out. That sounds like a lot of technical information to talk to you about a round, just a specific round, but here's why it's important for you to understand this. The reason why it's important is because we have two primers, we can control velocity very easily. When I say control velocity, this is for a rifle. We make it obviously for the 249 machine gun, heavier belt-fed linked ammunition. We do it for the 7.62 round. Again, 240 Bravo, heavy bolt, right? So we put a heavy primer in the rear so that we can cycle that heavy bolt, but we leave the forward pistol primer small. So we control velocity, still only 375 feet per second on an average, and the pistol is 335 feet per second on average. So when you're looking at the two primer systems, it is absolutely the patented, unique way where we control velocity. So that's critical to our system. That's the first and foremost. Second thing is that we also mark through inertia. And when I say we mark through inertia, if you think of a paintball round or something that has to hit something solid, that's bursting technology. It has to hit and then it has to burst in order to mark. We don't have that technology. We're not a bursting technology. We are inertia technology. So that means that any change in velocity, when this round comes out, any change in velocity, the ball flies forward and it forces the wax out of the dome. So that means that if you don't hit directly, if you actually have a grazing blow, but it changes the velocity of the round, the ball will still fly forward and it'll still mark. So the reliability of the marking is much greater. Reliability is much greater on that. It also operates in the lower temperatures or higher temperatures. It's been tested by the Army and been approved 99.9% accurate and reliable. And in addition to that, the marking compound is very reliable and it's very stable. So that's the man marker round. And again, we have it in the 5.56, we have it in 7.62, we have it in the linked, obviously for the belt-fed weapons, and we also have it in the pistol. And when I say pistol, I mean 40 cal, doesn't matter, we neck it down all the way to the 5.56 projectile, but it's all still the 9mm, all right? 40 cal, 9mm, doesn't matter. Okay, so the man markers and the basic technology. The silent blank, let's talk a little bit about the silent blank on the pistol. Okay, black barrel on top, silent blank rounds, white rounds inside the magazine. Again, understanding the equipment, understanding the rounds, and I'm going to use this magazine as an illustration, but you're going to watch, nothing comes out of the weapon. There's no gas, but watch, it's going to cycle. So you get the ejection, you get everything which would be normal. So if you wanted to work your reload drills, or you're working operation, or anything else, whatever it is, you wanted to work gun takeaways, you can do that with this, because there's no emissions whatsoever, and it cycles the gun. The cool thing also is that without this technology, people talk about contact shots. You teach officers how to do that. You teach soldiers how to do contact shots, but you really don't talk about, you say, well, what happens if it comes out of battery? Well, if I push on the front part of this slide and I do this, nothing happens. It will not fire, right? But if I let it go, now it fires. Well, how does that play in? Well, if I take the gun and I jam it into my body and I pull the trigger, nothing's going to happen. It malfunctions, right? But if I take the weapon and I make sure that I understand the functioning of the gun, and what I mean by functioning of the gun is that I can't jam it into the person's body to take it out of battery. So what I have to do is when I contact shot him, I have to be slightly away from him. So watch now. When I pull the trigger, it fires. It doesn't malfunction. The other thing is it operates just like a regular weapon. So you notice out of rounds, lock back, slide lock back, get the recoil exactly same. So that's on our silent blanks, and you can use, like I said, you can use it for combatives, you can use it for reloads, you can use it for a ton of different things. Let's talk a little bit about the battlefield blank, or the noisy blanks. Now on the noisy blanks, you notice it's the black cartridge. Now you're going to hear a louder pop, so you're taking them to that next stage. Okay, so you're getting that next stage evolution. So even if you were doing close quarter drills, I could still work the close quarter drills from here. I'm getting that snap, but it's not so loud that I need hearing protection, but at least they're getting that crack. The other thing is if you're getting people used to firearms drills and you want them to actually feel what it's like and they get a little bit more explosion, it's a step. You start with the silent blanks, work your way to battlefield blanks, then you go to man markers where you're actually hitting the target and you're shooting something, and then you can actually take them to live fire. By that time, they've already got a lot of trigger time and a lot of opportunity to train. So one more time, battlefield blanks, weapons out, lock back. You can do your reload drills exactly the same way. One more thing on the battlefield blanks, recommended standoff distance is 18 inches. What I mean by that is that you want to talk about 18 inches. Now that's probably a little bit less than 18 inches. I just want to show you from a safety standpoint. There's no issue. There's really low emissions. We just do that to be extra safe. But if you notice, nothing's really coming out. Just a little bit of debris that's stuck in the barrel maybe. So it's completely safe weapon system. Let's talk about the rifle. Is exactly the same. So now on the silent blank rounds, you'll notice on the silent blank rounds, the way you can tell the difference between the silent and the battlefield, which is what I just explained, silent being the quiet, battlefield being the noisy, is the difference is this one's completely sealed, that's the silent, no noise. The battlefield has a hole in the tip so that the noise can come out. That's the difference. The cool thing about our conversion and our system is that it's a blowback system, and the round is what cycles the bolt. If you remember, I talked about that in the beginning. Well, what's important about that is on the rifles, is notice what's not on the front of this rifle. A blank firing adapter, or a BFA. There's no BFA required on this. The reason why there's no BFA required is that the rounds are what's cycling the bolt. The expansion of the round blows the bolt to the rear. So it's not relying on gas going up and down the tube in order to cycle the gun. Well, the cool thing about that is that you have less malfunctions. We're running 1,000 rounds and we don't have any troubles whatsoever because the BFA loosens up. And if you've ever run in the military, if you've ever run a BFA, what ends up happening is that screw starts to loosen up, the gas starts to escape, and then you wind up with malfunctions on your blanks. And every third round is having to put it in the dirt. With our rounds, you're not having that problem because it's the reliability of the ammunition, which is very high grade aluminum, and it's a good ammunition that is actually going to make sure it cycles the gun, and I'm not relying on that loosening up. So BFA is a critical component of that. So let's talk about the silent blanks. I see what it fires, the way it fires. Okay, so I look at the magazine. One last thing before I put these in there, you notice one more thing is we have a blue safety mag. All right, you've got the blue on the bolt, but in addition to that, you've got the blue from the safety mag. The blue safety mag is twofold. It was originally designed so that it helped to feed the rounds into the weapon. And when I say it helps to feed, it actually comes up on an angle and it feeds it right into the chamber. It's very reliable. It helps to feed. Because one of the biggest problems that we have when you're running the systems is if you have bad magazines. If you're using metal mags and the lips are bent or broken or something along those lines, what ends up happening is that it malfunctions the feeding. Or if you have a bad follower or a spring inside the magazine. So our magazines we made very reliable, very durable, not going to have that lip problem. The other thing we did is you'll notice that it's slightly shorter. So if you take the standard NATO round, 5.56, 223 round, and you try to load it into this blue magazine, what's going to happen is it's going to stick out over the magazine 1/8 of an inch or so, and it's not going to go into the magazine well. So it serves two purposes. Really the primary purpose was for feeding, to make it reliable. The secondary thing was the safety, and also the blue, to give you a little bit more blue on the weapon when it's in there. Okay, so it just gives you some different variations on what the blue mag is for. So let's put that in here from here. All right, silent blank. You're going to notice, once again, as you start to pull the trigger on the weapon, as you pull the trigger on the weapon, it's going to give you the bolt is going to move. You're going to have that recoil. You're going to feel a little bit of jump. It's going to eject the rounds. When it goes empty, it's going to lock back. You're going to have the exact same function that you would normally have with any weapon system, but you notice you're not getting the noise. You're not getting anything coming out of the front. Now when I say nothing's coming out, I'm telling you nothing's coming out at all. No gases, no emissions whatsoever. So there's nothing there. Normally I know you wouldn't do this, but watch. Nothing coming out of the gun. It's completely safe. Put your hand right over the muzzle. Magazine's empty, lock back, same functionality of the weapon. So it gives you that realism. If you want to step up to the next level, so let's say you're working on snap-in drills, reload drills, whatever it was, and you're working silent blanks, you can do it in a classroom, in a building, because there's no gas coming out, completely safe. You wanted to run hallways, you're running active shooter drills. When you're running an active shooter drill, and you're running a hallway or an administrative building or something along those lines, and you don't want to make noise, silent blanks are great. You'll know that your officers or your operators are pulling the trigger, but you're not getting the noise and you're not marking up the building. So it's just another option. If you want to add that element of noise, you want to step them up to the next level. So we take our battlefield blanks and we load those in there. Now these are the noise makers. You're going to get a little bit of crack. So as I'm coming in from here, now I'm going to get a little crack, and I'm going to get the recoil. Again, lock back, magazine exchange, functionality of the weapon, exactly what you would have for a regular weapon. All right, this is your weapon. This is the one that you carry on duty. Remember, what we did was convert it over. So it gives you that realism in training. And then the next stage would be to go to the man marker cartridges, and then obviously we would start to do force on force, force on target, force on role player, whatever it is, whatever component you're working from there. So this gives you kind of an overview of the ammunition. There's one more round that we have available, and that is our target bullet round. Our target bullet round is the equivalent of a frangible ammunition live fire. It travels at 850 feet per second. It is a lethal round, but it's used for live fire, shoot houses, and things of that nature. It will not load into our force-on-force bolt, and it will not fire from our conversion. So it is completely 100% safe. You cannot mix one round with the other, and it is the only round that we make that's lethal, but it has to have its own individual separate bolt. So that kind of covers the ammunition and the conversions for the UTM RBT system.